Winter descended upon Boston with merciless precision. The December wind sliced through the financial district, sending pedestrians scurrying between buildings, collars raised against the biting cold. Snow began to fall as evening approached, heavy flakes swirling under streetlights, like lost stars searching for home. James Blackwood stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corner office, 40 stories above the city. The skyline stretched before him, lights blinking through the gathering storm. His reflection stared back at him in the glass, a tall figure in an impeccably tailored suit, silver streaking the temples of his dark hair. At 48, he carried the confident bearing of a man who had spent 2 decades conquering the financial world. His phone vibrated on the desk behind him. Without turning, he knew it was Martin, his lawyer, with the news. The divorce was final. After 2 years of negotiations, accusations, and mounting legal fees, Victoria was officially his ex-wife. The prenup had held. His empire, Blackwood Capital, remained intact. James should have felt victorious. Instead, an emptiness spread through his chest as he watched snowflakes dissolve against the heated glass. "Mr. Blackwood," his assistant appeared in the doorway. "Your driver is waiting. The board members have already left for the airport." "Thank you, Jennifer. Tell him I'll be down shortly." Alone again, James gathered his coat and briefcase. The office was silent, the holiday decorations in the reception area a jarring contrast to the hollow feeling inside him. Christmas used to mean something. Before the accident, before he lost his son, before the divorce. 20 minutes later, his Range Rover crawled through streets increasingly blanketed with snow. The driver navigated carefully past Boston Common, the park's trees transformed into crystalline sculptures. "Sir, with this weather, would you prefer to go straight home?" James checked his watch. The investors were safely on their private jets. The deal was secured. There was nothing waiting at his penthouse except silence and memories. "Pull over here at the park entrance." "Sir, the storm is getting worse." Just for a moment, the vehicle came to a stop. James stepped out into the swirling snow, feeling it immediately soak into his Italian leather shoes. The cold seemed fitting somehow, an external match for the numbness within. He walked a few paces into the park, hands deep in his cashmere coat pockets, one clutching the divorce papers Martin had messengered over earlier. The park was deserted, the storm having chased away even the most determined joggers and dog walkers. James reached a trash can near a bench and pulled out the paperwork. 2 years of marriage dissolved into 20 pages of legal jargon. He crumpled them and tossed them into the bin. "Excuse me, mister." The voice was so faint that James nearly missed it beneath the wind's howl. He looked around, seeing no one. "I'm in here." James stared at the trash can. Surely not. He stepped closer, peering inside. 2 enormous eyes gazed up at him from the darkness of the bin, wide with fear and uncertainty. A child, a small girl, perhaps 4 or 5 years old, her face smudged with dirt, dark hair matted around her pale face. "My God." James stepped back, momentarily stunned. "What are you doing in there?" "It's warmer," the child replied simply, her voice small and hoarse. "The wind hurts outside." James looked around frantically for a parent, a caretaker, anyone who might be responsible for this child. The park remained empty, snow falling thicker by the minute. "Where are your parents? Your mother?" The girl hunched smaller, hugging herself. She wore only a thin jacket, wholly inadequate for the brutal December weather. Her lips had a bluish tinge that set alarm bells ringing in James's mind. "Come out of there," he said, reaching toward her. "You'll freeze to death." The child hesitated, studying him with a wariness no child her age should possess. Then slowly she raised her arms. James lifted her from the bin, shocked at how light she felt, how fragile. "What's your name?" he asked, immediately shrugging off his coat and wrapping it around her tiny frame. "Lily," she whispered, her teeth chattering. "Where's your mother, Lily?" The girl looked toward the bench a dozen yards away. "She told me to wait there. She said she'd be right back." "When did she leave you?" Lily's small face scrunched in concentration. 3 days ago." The words hit James like a physical blow. 3 days? This child had been alone in Boston Common for 3 days? During a winter storm? 3 days, he repeated, unable to process such neglect. "You've been here for 3 days? Alone?" Lily nodded, her eyes downcast. "Mommy said to wait. She was wearing her blue dress, her special one. James felt rage building inside him, hot and fierce, directed at this unknown mother. He looked again at the little girl, noticing now how thin her arms were, how hollow her cheeks appeared. "Has anyone tried to help you? Have you eaten?" "People walk around me," Lily said matter-of-factly. "I had crackers in my pocket. They're gone now." Something broke open inside James's chest. This child, abandoned and invisible, had survived 3 days of neglect and freezing temperatures through sheer resilience. "We need to call the police," he said, more to himself than to her. The effect was immediate. Lily stiffened in his arms, her small hands clutching at his shirt with surprising strength. "No, no police!" Terror filled her voice. "Mommy said never talk to police." "Lily, the police can help. They'll take me away." And tears spilled down her dirty cheeks. "Please don't. Please, Mommy will come back," she promised. James hesitated. The rational course of action was clear. Contact authorities, let them handle this abandoned child, return to his ordered life. Yet something in her desperate plea resonated with him. How many times had he been shuffled between foster homes as a child, each promising care, most delivering only neglect or worse? His driver approached cautiously. "Sir, is everything all right?" James made a decision that would alter the course of his life. "Change of plans. We're taking her to the penthouse. And call Carter. Tell him I need him immediately." In the vehicle, Lily sat rigidly beside him, her small body swallowed by his coat. Her eyes darted between the luxurious interior and James's face, as if waiting for the trick, the catch to this unexpected rescue. "Are you hungry?" James asked. Lily nodded almost imperceptibly. "We'll get you food and warm clothes." He pulled out his phone and dialed. "Carter, I need you to investigate something. A child abandoned at Boston Common, approximately 4 years old. Girl, first name Lily, unknown last name. Mother missing for 3 days. No authorities yet. I need information first. Background checks on recent missing children reports. And Carter, this is priority 1. James ended the call, feeling Lily's eyes on him. Her gaze held a wisdom no child should possess, the hard-earned knowledge of a survivor. "Who are you?" she asked quietly. "My name is James Blackwood." "Are you a king?" Despite everything, James felt his lips twitch toward a smile. "No, why do you ask?" "You talk like people listen to you." "I'm just a businessman." The Range Rover pulled into the private underground garage of his building. The doorman's eyes widened at the sight of James Blackwood, notorious recluse, carrying a small, bedraggled child wrapped in his $1,000 coat. To his credit, the man recovered quickly. "Good evening, Mr. Blackwood. Shall I call ahead to your housekeeper?" "No, Mrs. Harris has the evening off." James headed for the private elevator, Lily still in his arms. "But have the kitchen send up soup, sandwiches, and milk immediately." The elevator ascended swiftly to the top floor. When the doors opened directly into the penthouse foyer, Lily gasped softly. The space stretched before them, minimalist and elegant. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the storm raging outside, snow illuminated by the city lights. Modern furnishings in shades of gray and black offered little warmth. It was a showcase, not a home. Designed by Victoria and maintained exactly as she left it 2 years ago. "You live here all alone?" Lily asked as James set her down. "Yes." She looked around the vast space, then back at him. "Aren't you lonely?" The question, so simple and direct, caught James off guard. Before he could answer, the service elevator chimed, announcing the arrival of the food. James collected the tray from the attendant and placed it on the kitchen island. "Let's get you cleaned up first," he said, avoiding Lily's question. The guest bathroom overwhelmed Lily. She stared at the marble fixtures and glass shower as if they were artifacts from another world. James ran a bath, awkwardly testing the water temperature with his wrist, as he'd seen parents do. His inexperience was painfully apparent as he searched for soap that wouldn't sting a child's eyes. "I'll find you something to wear while you bathe," he said, turning to leave. "Don't go." Fear flashed across Lily's face. "I'll be right outside the door," James assured her. "Promise?" The word hung between them, weighted with significance beyond its single syllable. James recognized it for what it was, Not just a request for reassurance, but a test. How many promises had already been broken in her short life? I promise, Lily. While she bathed, James searched through his closets for anything that might serve as children's clothing. He found a t-shirt that would swallow her small frame but could function as a nightgown. His phone rang as he was folding it. Carter, what have you found? Nothing, sir. No reports of missing children matching her description in the past week. No Amber Alerts. Nothing. That's impossible. A child missing for 3 days. Unless no one reported her missing, sir. The implications settled heavily on James's shoulders. Keep digging, check hospitals, shelters. Find out if there's a woman named Claire with a daughter named Lily. Look for recently deceased women who might have left behind a daughter. Sir, eventually we'll need to involve authorities. Not yet. Give me 24 hours. James ended the call just as Lily emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel nearly bigger than she was. Clean, her appearance was transformed. Her hair, though tangled, was revealed to be a rich auburn. Her skin, beneath the grime, was fair with a splash of freckles across her nose. But most striking were her eyes, large, intelligent, and the deep blue of a summer sea. James handed her the t-shirt. This will have to do for tonight. Tomorrow we'll get you proper clothes. While Lily changed, James arranged the food on the dining table. He watched as she approached cautiously, climbing onto a chair, her eyes fixed on the soup and sandwiches as if they might vanish if she looked away. Go ahead. Didn't he encouraged. Lily needed no further invitation. She ate with the desperate focus of the truly hungry, occasionally glancing up as if to ensure James was still there, that this wasn't a dream that might evaporate. Slow down, he cautioned gently. There's plenty more. As she ate, James studied her, professional assessment mixing with growing concern. The bath had revealed more than just her natural appearance. Fading bruises marked her thin arms, and when she reached for a glass of milk, her shirt sleeve slipped back to expose more marks. Lily, he asked carefully, did someone hurt you? She froze, sandwich halfway to her mouth. Fear flickered across her face. I fell, she said too quickly. I fall a lot. The practiced response told James everything he needed to know. This wasn't just about abandonment. Someone had been hurting this child routinely enough that she had a ready explanation. You're safe here, he said, his voice lower, gentler than usual. No one will hurt you. Lily said nothing, but her eyes, those old soul eyes in a child's face, studied him with cautious hope. After dinner, exhaustion overtook her rapidly. James led her to the guest bedroom, a space that had never actually hosted guests. The king-size bed dwarfed her small form as she crawled beneath the covers. Is this where I sleep? She asked, wonder in her voice. Yes. Is it comfortable? Lily nodded, sinking into the plush mattress and high thread count sheets. It's like a cloud. James turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. Can you leave the light on, please? Of course. He moved to the doorway, feeling strangely reluctant to leave. Something about this child, abandoned and brave, had awakened protective instincts he thought long dead. Mr. Blackwood? Her voice was already heavy with approaching sleep. James, he corrected gently. You can call me James. Will you still be here when I wake up? Again, that test. That need for reassurance from a world that had offered her none. Yes, Lily, I'll be here. James left the door ajar and retreated to his study, mind racing. The rational part of his brain cataloged all the reasons this situation was untenable. He was a businessman, not a caretaker. He had no experience with children since Matthew. The thought of his son sent a familiar pain through his chest. 5 years gone, and the wound remained raw. His phone buzzed with a message from Carter. Sir, found something. Woman named Claire Adams, 28, former dancer, history of substance abuse, has a daughter named Lily, known to be homeless on and off for past year. No current missing persons report, but she's in the system. James typed back, keep digging, find her. A noise from the guest room pulled him from his thoughts. A whimper, then a full-throated scream that chilled his blood. James ran, finding Lily thrashing in the massive bed, tears streaming down her face though her eyes remained closed. No, please, don't hurt Mommy, she cried out, still caught in her nightmare. James reached her, uncertain how to comfort a terrified child. He settled for gently touching her shoulder. Lily, "Lily, wake up. You're safe." Her eyes flew open, wild with panic. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize him. Then recognition dawned, and she launched herself at him, small arms wrapping around his neck with desperate strength. "The bad man was coming," she sobbed against his shoulder. "He was coming to take me away." James awkwardly patted her back, feeling her heart racing like a trapped bird against his chest. "No one's going to take you away," he promised, surprised at his own vehemence. "You're safe here." Gradually, her sobs subsided, replaced by hiccuping breaths. She pulled back just enough to look at his face, searching for truth. "Who is the bad man, Lily?" James asked gently. "Frank," she whispered, the name itself seeming to frighten her. "He makes mommy cry." "Is Frank your father?" Lily shook her head emphatically. "No, he's just mean. He says I belong to him because mommy owes him money." Alarm bells rang in James's mind. This wasn't just about abandonment or even abuse. This had the hallmarks of something far more sinister. "Lily, does your mother use drugs?" The little girl's brow furrowed. "She takes medicine sometimes. It makes her sleepy." James felt cold certainty settle in his gut. Claire Adams was an addict, likely in debt to her dealer. And Lily, innocent, vulnerable Lily, was collateral. "Can I stay with you?" Lily asked, her voice small. "I'm scared of the dark." Without hesitation, James lifted her. Of course. He carried her to his bedroom, a space equally minimalist but larger, with a wall of windows overlooking the snow-covered city. He settled her in his bed, her tiny form nearly disappearing among the pillows. "It's pretty," she murmured, watching snowflakes illuminated by the city glow. Her eyelids grew heavy again, the terror of her nightmare receding. James sat in a chair beside the bed, watching as she drifted back to sleep. His mind raced with implications and decisions. The sensible course was clear. Contact authorities in the morning, explain the situation, let the system take over. Yet something in him rebelled at the thought. He knew the system. He'd grown up in it after his parents died. Most of his childhood had been spent bounced between foster homes of varying degrees of neglect and indifference. It had taught him self-reliance, certainly, but at what cost? Looking at Lily's sleeping face, peaceful now after her terror, James felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 long years. Purpose. This child needed protection, not just from the elements or hunger, but from the Frank who claimed ownership of her, from a system that would see her as just another statistic. His phone vibrated with another message from Carter. "Sir, found more. Claire Adams admitted to Massachusetts General Hospital 3 days ago. Critical condition. Liver failure, suspected drug-related." The pieces clicked into place. Claire hadn't intentionally abandoned Lily. She'd collapsed, been taken to a hospital, leaving her daughter alone on that bench. Tomorrow, James would visit the hospital. He would find answers. He would figure out what to do next. But tonight, watching over this sleeping child, he made a silent vow that surprised him with its intensity. No one would hurt Lily again. Not Frank, not the system, no one. Outside, the storm intensified, snow piling against the windows like nature itself trying to breach the sanctuary he'd created. James Blackwood, who had spent years building walls around himself after losing everything that mattered, felt those walls beginning to crack. One small girl, found in the most unlikely of places, had awakened something he'd believed long dead: his heart. Morning arrived with brutal clarity. Sunlight reflected off fresh snow, turning Boston into a glittering wonderland. James woke in the chair where he'd spent the night, his neck stiff, to find Lily already awake, watching him with those solemn blue eyes. "You stayed," she said, wonder in her voice. "I promised I would." The simplicity of the exchange belied its significance. A promise kept, perhaps the first in Lily's short experience. James's phone rang. Judge Robert Thompson, his oldest friend and confidant. "I need your advice, Robert," James said without preamble. "It's complicated and potentially legally problematic." "Those are my favorite kinds of problems," the judge replied. "Come by my chambers this afternoon." After a breakfast where Lily approached the pancakes and fresh fruit with the same desperate hunger as the night before, James faced a practical dilemma. The child needed clothes, and he needed to visit both the hospital and the judge. A knock at the door solved one problem. Miss Harris, his housekeeper, arrived for her regular morning duties, her eyes widening at the sight of Lily perched on a bar stool in his kitchen. Mr. Blackwood, confusion colored her voice. Mrs. Harris, this is Lily. She'll be staying with us for a while. To her credit, the older woman recovered quickly. Decades of service to the wealthy had taught her discretion above all. I see. Will Miss Lily be needing anything special for lunch? Actually, I was hoping you might watch her while I attend to some business. James lowered his voice. She needs clothes, proper food. There are circumstances. Mrs. Harris's gaze softened as she looked at Lily, who was studying her warily. Of course, sir. My granddaughter was about her size at that age. I could have my daughter bring over some of the clothes she's outgrown. That would be most helpful. With that arranged, James prepared to leave, only to find Lily suddenly at his side, panic in her eyes. You're going away? Fear made her voice tremble. James knelt to her level. Just for a few hours. Mrs. Harris will take good care of you. I need to find out about your mother. You'll come back? The question contained all her previous abandonment, all her fragile trust. I promise, James said, meaning it more than any promise he'd made in years. And when I return, we'll talk about what happens next. At Massachusetts General Hospital, James's reputation opened doors that would remain closed to most. Claire Adams was indeed a patient, unconscious in the ICU. Her attending physician pulled no punches. Terminal liver failure, years of substance abuse, were keeping her comfortable, but honestly, it's just a matter of days. She has a daughter, James said, 4 years old, named Lily. The doctor checked the chart. There's no mention of a child in her intake forms, because she left her on a bench in Boston Common before coming here. The child spent 3 days alone in freezing temperatures before I found her. Shock registered on the doctor's face. We should contact social services immediately. Not yet, James said firmly. I need to speak with Claire first, if she regains consciousness. Mr. Blackwood, I understand you're trying to help, but there are protocols. Doctor, James's voice took on the edge that made Wall Street executives quake. I've made a sizable donation to this hospital over the years. I'm simply asking for discretion for 24 hours. After that, we'll proceed by the book. Reluctantly, the doctor agreed. She drifts in and out. If you want to wait, you might get a few lucid minutes. James spent 3 hours in an uncomfortable chair beside Claire's bed. She was young, probably beautiful once before drugs hollowed her cheeks and dulled her skin. In her face, he could see echoes of Lily, the same delicate bone structure, the same auburn hair, though Claire's was lifeless where Lily's shone. Finally, her eyes fluttered open. Confusion gave way to focus as she registered James's presence. Who? Her voice was a dry rasp. My name is James Blackwood. I found your daughter. Claire's eyes widened, sudden awareness bringing tears. Lily, is she alive? Is she safe? The desperate hope in her voice confirmed what James had begun to suspect. Claire hadn't willingly abandoned her child. She's safe, he assured her. I found her last night in Boston Common. She was hiding in a trash can to stay warm. Oh, God. Tears flowed freely now. I told her to wait on the bench just for a minute while I checked in at the ER. I felt so sick. Then everything went black. When I woke up, it was days later. I tried to tell the nurses, but they thought I was delirious. Lily mentioned someone named Frank, James said, watching closely for her reaction. Fear transformed Claire's face. Did he find her? Did he take her? No, she's with me. She's safe, but I need to understand who Frank is and what danger he poses. Claire turned her face away, shame evident in every line of her body. Frank Reynolds, my dealer at first, then more. He controls everything in his territory. When I couldn't pay, he said Lily would work off my debt. James felt ice in his veins. Work it off how? However he wanted, Claire whispered. He has connections. People who would pay for, she couldn't finish the sentence, human trafficking. The words remained unspoken, but hung in the air between them. This wasn't just about drugs or money. This was about selling a child. Why didn't you go to the police? Claire's laugh was bitter. With my record, they'd take Lily away, put her in the system, and Frank has people everywhere. He'd find her. The same conclusion James had reached independently. The system wouldn't protect Lily, it would only make her more vulnerable. Listen to me, Claire said, suddenly gripping his arm with surprising strength. I'm dying, I know that. But Lily deserves a chance. Promise me you won't let her go into foster care. Promise me you'll keep her safe from Frank. It was madness. James Blackwood, divorced CEO, taking responsibility for a stranger's child based on a deathbed promise. Yet looking at Claire, seeing Lily's eyes in her face, he couldn't refuse. I promise. Relief washed over Claire's features. She reached for something beside her bed, a small silver chain with a star-shaped pendant. This was my grandmother's. It's all I have of value. Give it to Lily. Tell her it's her wishing star. James accepted the necklace, the silver cool against his palm. I'll make sure she gets it. Claire's eyes began to drift closed, her burst of energy fading. Thank you, she whispered, for finding her when I couldn't. Later in Judge Thompson's chambers, James laid out the entire situation. The older man listened without interruption, his expression growing increasingly grave. So let me understand this, Thompson said when James finished. You want to assume temporary guardianship of a child you found in a trash can, whose mother is dying, and who's being hunted by a drug dealer who wants to tell her. That's accurate. James, this isn't like acquiring a struggling company. This is a child, a traumatized one at that. I'm aware. Thompson sighed, removing his glasses to pinch the bridge of his nose. The legal process for emergency guardianship exists for situations like this, but it requires transparency, background checks, home studies. And frankly, a divorced workaholic with no child care experience isn't the ideal candidate. Robert, you know my background. You know what the system did to me. I do. But I also know you've spent the last 5 years shutting yourself away from the world. Since Matthew died, don't, James's voice hardened. This isn't about Matthew. Isn't it? You lost your son. Now you found a child who needs saving. James stood, pacing the judge's office. Maybe it is. Maybe I see a chance to do something right after failing my own son. But that doesn't change the facts. Lily needs protection, not just from Frank Reynolds, but from a system that will chew her up and spit her out. Judge Thompson studied his old friend. I can grant temporary emergency guardianship. It buys you 30 days. After that, we'll need a formal hearing. And James, if Frank Reynolds is as connected as you believe, he'll fight for her, not because he cares about the child, but because she represents money to him. Let him try, James said, steel in his voice. He has no idea who he's dealing with. As predicted, it took less than 24 hours for the first challenge to arrive. James returned to the penthouse to find Mrs. Harris visibly shaken. A woman came, she explained in a hushed voice, while Lily played with new toys in the living room, said she was from Child Protective Services, wanted to take Lily immediately. Something felt wrong, so I asked for her credentials. She got aggressive, then left when I threatened to call security. What did she look like? Mid-30s, dark hair, expensively dressed but trying to look official. She knew Lily's name. James's phone rang. Carter. Sir, we have a problem. Frank Reynolds has filed a claim for custody of Lily Adams. He's claiming to be her uncle, her mother's brother. That's impossible. Claire has no siblings. He's produced documentation, birth certificates, family photos, all forgeries, I'm certain, but convincing ones. And sir, he has friends in the department, officers who owe him favors. James watched Lily across the room, focused intently on a puzzle Mrs. Harris had brought. So small, so vulnerable, yet somehow surviving despite everything stacked against her. In that moment, he made a decision that would alter both their lives forever. Carter, I want everything on Frank Reynolds. Every business, every associate, every skeleton in his closet. And I want protection for Lily, professional security, 24/7. No one gets near her without my explicit permission. Yes, sir, and the woman who came today? Find her. I want to know who she is and who she really works for. That night, after Lily had been tucked into bed in her new room, the guest room, now transformed with children's furniture and toys, rushed in from Boston's most exclusive stores. James stood at his bedroom window, watching the city below. His phone buzzed with a text from Thompson. Emergency hearing scheduled for next week. Reynolds moving quickly. Be prepared. The battle lines were drawn. On one side, Frank Reynolds, a drug dealer with connections throughout the Boston underworld and apparently into legitimate channels as well. On the other, James Blackwood, a man who had clawed his way from foster care to the pinnacle of financial power, who had nothing left to lose except a child who wasn't his. A sound from the doorway made him turn. Lily stood there in noose pajamas, clutching a teddy bear almost as big as she was. "I had a bad dream again," she said softly. James crossed to her and after only a moment's hesitation, lifted her into his arms. "The same one?" She nodded against his shoulder. "Frank was trying to take me away." "That's not going to happen," James said with quiet conviction. "I won't let it." Lily pulled back to study his face with that unnerving wisdom. "Promise?" "I promise, Lily." The child seemed to accept this, settling against him with a trust that humbled him. As he carried her back to her room, she asked sleepily, "Can I stay with you forever?" The question cut straight through James's carefully constructed defenses. Here was a child who had known nothing but instability, asking for permanence from a man who had lost everything he ever loved. "We'll figure it out together," he told her, his voice rough with emotion. As he tucked her in, her small hand caught his. "I think my mommy sent you to find me." "Maybe she did," James whispered. Later, alone in his study, he opened a drawer he hadn't touched in 5 years. Inside lay a silver frame containing a photograph of a young boy with James's eyes and smile. Matthew at 7, a year before the accident that took him. James traced his son's face with a gentle finger. "What would you think of all this, Matt?" he murmured. "Your old dad taking in a stray." He could almost hear Matthew's laugh, see his approving nod. His son had always had a soft spot for underdogs. James closed the drawer and returned to his computer, where dossiers on Frank Reynolds and his operations awaited review. The man was powerful in Boston's underworld, yes, but James Blackwood hadn't built a financial empire by backing down from fights. Frank Reynolds wanted Lily, but to get her, he would have to go through James. And James was prepared to use every resource, every connection, every dollar of his considerable fortune to ensure that never happened. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and silent against the windows. Inside, for the first time in 5 years, the penthouse didn't feel empty. It felt like the beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. 3 weeks transformed the penthouse. Where sterile minimalism once ruled, life now flourished. Crayon drawings adorned the refrigerator. A pink backpack rested against custom bookshelves filled with children's stories. Stuffed animals claimed territory on leather couches. The transformation extended beyond the physical space. James Blackwood, once known only for ruthless business acumen, now carried a small pink lunchbox alongside his briefcase. Winter sunlight streamed through the windows as James poured coffee, watching Lily eat breakfast at the kitchen island. Her auburn hair, neatly braided by Mrs. Harris, caught the light. The hollowness in her cheeks had filled, her skin now glowing with health. But it was the gradual disappearance of fear in her eyes that marked the most significant change. James checked his watch. "Remember, Carter will pick you up from Mrs. Harris's apartment at 3 today. I have meetings until evening." Lily nodded, mouthful of cereal. She swallowed and asked, "Is it about the judge?" James concealed his surprise. Children absorbed far more than adults credited. "Yes, Judge Thompson is helping us make sure you can stay here safely." "Because of Frank?" The name still triggered a shadow across her face. James set down his coffee cup and moved to her side. "Frank will never hurt you, Lily, I promise." She studied him with those ancient eyes in a child's face. "He hurts everybody." Before James could respond, his phone rang. The hospital. He stepped away to answer it, keeping his voice low. "Mr. Blackwood, this is Dr. Mercer from Mass General. Claire Adams is asking for you. Her condition has deteriorated rapidly overnight. If you want to speak with her again, I suggest you come immediately." James glanced at Lily, happily unaware as she finished her breakfast. "I'll be there within the hour." After arranging for Mrs. Harris to take Lily for the day, James drove to Massachusetts General, his mind churning. In the 3 weeks since finding Lily, he'd built a protective fortress around her both physically and legally. Judge Thompson had granted temporary emergency guardianship. Private security monitored the penthouse and followed Lily whenever she left it. Carter had compiled an extensive dossier on Frank Reynolds, revealing tentacles of influence extending into city government and law enforcement. Yet for all his preparations, James couldn't shake the feeling that Frank was merely biding his time, waiting to strike at the perfect moment. At the hospital, Claire Adams barely resembled the woman he'd met weeks ago. The disease had ravaged her, leaving her skeletal, her skin yellowed with jaundice. Yet when her eyes found James, they sparked with the same blue intensity as her daughter's. "You came," she whispered, voice barely audible. James took the seat beside her bed. "How are you feeling?" A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "Dying, but that's not why I called you." She struggled to sit up. "Frank visited yesterday." James stiffened. "What did he want?" "To threaten me, to remind me who owns Lily." Claire's fingers clutched the thin hospital blanket. "He knows she's with you. He knows about the guardianship hearing." "He can't touch her," James assured her. "I have security, legal protection." "You don't understand," Claire interrupted, desperation lending strength to her voice. "Frank doesn't lose, ever, and he wants Lily because of the money." "What money?" Claire's gaze dropped. "My grandmother left a trust fund, almost $30 million. I never touched it because accessing it would mean registering addresses, bank accounts, showing up in systems where Frank could find us." Her eyes met his again. "The trust passes to Lily when I die. Frank found out somehow. That's why he's so determined." James absorbed this revelation. Not just a child trafficker, but a fortune hunter. The stakes had just risen exponentially. "Does Lily know about this inheritance?" Claire shook her head. "She knows nothing, and she shouldn't. Not until she's grown." "I'll protect both her and the money," James promised. "Frank won't get either." Claire's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "There's more. Frank has photographs of us together, documents he's forged to make it look like we were married, that he helped raise Lily. He's building a case to claim her." Her breathing grew labored. "The only proof of who he really is, what he really does, is in a storage unit. The key is taped under the bathroom sink in my old apartment, 22 Westland Avenue, Unit 3B. James memorized the address. "I'll get it." "Be careful," she warned. "Frank watches the place. He doesn't know about the storage unit, but he knows I kept evidence." Claire's eyes began to flutter, her energy flagging. The monitor beside her bed showed her heart rate slowing. "Lily," she whispered, "tell her I loved her. Tell her I'm sorry." "You can tell her yourself," James said. "Let me bring her to see you." Claire's eyes closed. "No, I don't want her last memory of me to be this. Tell her I'm watching from the stars." A nurse entered, checking the monitors with practiced efficiency. "Mr. Blackwood, I need to ask you to leave. We need to stabilize her." In the hallway, James called Carter. "I need you to secure an apartment at 22 Westland Avenue. There's evidence there that could help our case against Reynolds." "Sir, Reynolds has men watching that building around the clock." "Then we'll need a distraction." James's mind raced through possibilities. "Have our team create a situation 2 blocks away. Make it look like Claire Adams has been spotted. That should draw them off long enough for you to get inside. And if we encounter resistance?" James's voice hardened. "Do whatever necessary. That evidence could buy the difference between Lily's safety and Reynolds getting his hands on her." Back at the penthouse that evening, James found Lily in the living room with Mrs. Harris working on a puzzle. The domestic scene struck him with unexpected force. This child, abandoned and abused mere weeks ago, now concentrated with childish intensity on fitting pieces together, secure in the belief that her world would remain stable. "Daddy!" Lily spotted him and raced across the room, wrapping her arms around his legs. The word still startled him. It had emerged spontaneously a week earlier, and James hadn't corrected her. Now it felt right, natural, as if the universe had finally aligned properly. Mrs. Harris gathered her things. "She was an angel today, Mr. Blackwood. We baked cookies and practiced her letters." After the housekeeper left, James sat with Lily as she proudly demonstrated her newfound ability to write her name. "Look, Lily. Mrs. Harris says I'm smart." "You certainly are," James agreed, his heart swelling with an unfamiliar pride. Later, after bath time and bedtime stories, as he tucked Lily into bed, she asked the question he'd been dreading. "Is my mommy ever coming back?" James sat on the edge of the bed, choosing his words carefully. Lily, your mommy is very sick. The kind of sick that doctors can't fix. Understanding dawned in her eyes with heartbreaking clarity. She's going to heaven, isn't she? Yes, sweetheart. Soon. Lily was quiet for a long moment, her small fingers tracing the pattern on her comforter. Will she be able to see me from heaven? James swallowed the lump in his throat. Your mother told me that she'll be watching you from the stars, that whenever you look up at the night sky, she'll be there, looking back at you. Tears filled Lily's eyes, but they were quiet tears, as if she had always known this moment would come. Like my star necklace. Yes, speaking of which, James reached into his pocket and withdrew the silver pendant Claire had entrusted to him. Your mother wanted you to have this. It belonged to your great-grandmother. Lily accepted the necklace reverently, her small fingers tracing the silver star. It's beautiful. Would you like me to put it on you? She nodded, turning so he could fasten the chain around her neck. When she faced him again, the star rested against her pajamas, catching the soft light from her bedside lamp. Now I'll always have a piece of mommy with me, she said with a wisdom far beyond her years. James smoothed her hair back from her forehead. That's right, and you know what else? What? You have me too, always. Lily's arms wrapped around his neck in a fierce hug. Promise? Oh. I promise. He held her until her breathing evened out in sleep, then gently extricated himself. In his study, James found Carter waiting, a manila envelope in hand. We retrieved the items from Claire Adams's apartment, sir. It was illuminating. The envelope contained photographs documenting Frank's operations, drug deals, money changing hands with uniformed police officers. Most disturbing were images of young girls being escorted into expensive cars by well-dressed men. Jesus, James muttered, his stomach turning. There's more, sir. Carter handed over a flash drive. This contains financial records. Reynolds has been laundering money through several legitimate businesses. He also has a silent partnership with Judge Thomas Weber. The family court judge assigned to our case? The very same. James paced the study, mind racing. This explains how Reynolds got his custody petition fast-tracked. The judge is in his pocket. What do you want to do, sir? If we take this to the authorities, we don't know who else is compromised, James interrupted. We need leverage, not just evidence. He stopped pacing. Find me everything on Judge Weber. Tax returns, property holdings, mistresses, gambling debts, whatever skeleton he's hiding in his closet, I want it. Sir, that borders on blackmail. James turned cold eyes to his security chief. That man is prepared to hand an innocent child to a trafficking ring for money. I'm not feeling particularly constrained by legal niceties at the moment. Carter nodded, accepting the shift in ethical boundaries. There's one more thing you should know. Claire Adams passed away an hour ago. The news hit James harder than expected. Though he'd known it was coming, though he'd only met her twice, Claire had entrusted him with her most precious treasure. Now that trust was solely his responsibility. We'll need to tell Lily in the morning, he said quietly. Sir, with Claire gone, the trust fund automatically transfers to Lily. Reynolds will be moving aggressively now. Then so will we. Morning brought the hardest conversation of James's life. Sitting beside Lily at breakfast, he gently explained that her mother had gone to join the stars during the night. The child's grief was silent but profound. She climbed into James's lap and stayed there, clutching her star necklace, refusing to speak or eat. By afternoon, the news James dreaded arrived. Judge Weber had scheduled an emergency custody hearing for the following day, citing new evidence and family reunification priorities. Frank Reynolds was making his move. James convened an emergency meeting in his home office. Present were Eliza Foster, his formidable attorney, Carter, and unexpectedly, Victoria Blackwood, his ex-wife. Victoria's presence raised eyebrows, but James had his reasons. Despite their acrimonious divorce, Victoria maintained connections throughout Boston high society. She also knew firsthand the kind of man James was, his strengths and weaknesses as both a husband and a father. Thank you all for coming, James began. As you know, Frank Reynolds has accelerated his custody petition following Claire Adams's death. The hearing is tomorrow, with Judge Weber presiding. We need options. Eliza spread documents across the desk. The situation is challenging. Reynolds has manufactured an extensive paper trail showing he's Claire's brother and has been involved in Lily's life since birth. He's also filed affidavits from witnesses attesting to your unsuitability as a guardian due to your workaholic tendencies and lack of child care experience. Can we get the judge recused based on his connection to Reynolds? James asked. Without hard evidence of corruption, no. Merely having business dealings isn't sufficient. Victoria, elegant as always in a tailored suit, examined the photographs from Claire's evidence cache. These would certainly sink Reynolds, but they might not help James keep Lily. If anything, they'd put her into the system while the whole mess is investigated. Which is exactly what Claire was afraid of, James noted. Reynolds has connections inside the system. He could reach Lily there. Carter cleared his throat. Sir, we've found something on Weber. 3 years ago, he was involved in a drunk driving incident that was mysteriously expunged from the records. The victim was paid off handsomely. Victoria's eyebrows rose. Blackmail, James? Really? I prefer to think of it as aggressive negotiation. It's a risky strategy, Eliza warned. If it backfires, you'll lose any chance of keeping Lily. James stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. What's our alternative? Watch Reynolds walk away with her tomorrow? That's not happening. A small voice from the doorway interrupted them. Are you talking about Frank? All heads turned to find Lily standing there, clutching her teddy bear. James immediately crossed to her. You should be resting, sweetheart. I heard you talking about Frank. Is he coming to take me away? The naked fear in her voice steeled James's resolve. He knelt to her level. No, no one is taking you away from me. I promised you that, remember? Victoria approached, kneeling beside James. Hello, Lily. My name is Victoria. I used to be married to James. Lily studied her warily. Are you here to help? A small smile touched Victoria's lips. Yes, I am. Because despite our differences, James and I agree on one thing. You deserve to be safe and happy. Later, after Lily had been settled back in her room with Mrs. Harris reading to her, the adults reconvened. I have a proposition, Victoria said. Rather than blackmail, which could backfire spectacularly, we use Weber's history to encourage him to recuse himself due to conflict of interest in a way that saves face. Meanwhile, I activate my social connections to get Judge Margaret Chen assigned to the case. Chen is notoriously by the book, Eliza noted. She won't be swayed by Reynolds' manufactured evidence. She's also known for putting children's welfare first, Victoria added. And she happens to be a close personal friend. James studied his ex-wife with newfound appreciation. Why are you helping, Victoria? After everything between us? Something vulnerable flickered across Victoria's carefully composed features. Because I remember how you were with Matthew. Because that little girl deserves better than what awaits her with Reynolds. And because despite everything, James, you're a good man trying to do the right thing. That deserves support. The mention of their son hung in the air between them, an acknowledgement of shared grief that had torn them apart rather than bound them together. Thank you, James said simply. The following morning, as James prepared to leave for court, Lily appeared in his bedroom doorway, dressed in a new blue dress that Mrs. Harris had helped her select. I want to come too, she announced. James adjusted his tie. The courthouse isn't a place for children, Lily. But they're deciding about me. Shouldn't I be there? The logic was impeccable, but James hesitated. There might be people there who upset you. Frank will be there. Lily's chin lifted, a spark of her mother's determination visible in her stance. I'm not scared if you're with me. Pride and concern warred within James. Finally, he nodded. All right, but you stay with me or Victoria the entire time. And if I ask you to leave with Mrs. Harris, you go immediately. No arguments. I promise. At the courthouse, an unexpected development awaited. Judge Weber had indeed recused himself, citing a potential conflict of interest. Judge Margaret Chen would hear the case instead. Victoria's strategy was working. The courtroom was tense as proceedings began. Frank Reynolds sat at the plaintiff's table, impeccably dressed in an expensive suit that couldn't quite conceal the predatory nature beneath. When he spotted Lily entering with James, A smile spread across his face that never reached his cold eyes. Judge Chen reviewed the files before her, her expression revealing nothing. "This is an unusual case," she began. "Mr. Reynolds claims to be the maternal uncle of the minor child and seeks custody on grounds of family reunification. Mr. Blackwood has temporary emergency guardianship, but no biological relationship to the child. I'll hear from both parties, starting with Mr. Reynolds." Frank's attorney, a slick operator named Dawson, presented their case with practiced conviction. "Your Honor, my client is the only surviving blood relative of Lily Adams. He has been a presence in her life since birth, as documented by photographs and witness statements. While he respects Mr. Blackwood's temporary intervention, the child belongs with family." Throughout this presentation, Lily gripped James's hand tightly, her small body rigid with tension. When it was their turn, Eliza Foster approached the bench. "Your Honor, Mr. Reynolds has manufactured a relationship with Lily that simply doesn't exist. He claims to be Claire Adams' brother, yet we have definitive proof that Claire was an only child. She presented birth records and school documents proving Claire had no siblings. Furthermore, Lily herself has never recognized Mr. Reynolds as her uncle. In fact, she has expressed terror at the prospect of being placed in his care." Judge Chen looked directly at Lily. "Is the child present in court?" James stood. "Yes, Your Honor. Lily is here." "I'd like to speak with her in chambers without counsel present." Frank leapt to his feet. "Objection. The child has been influenced by Blackwood. Anything she says will be coached." Judge Chen's gaze cooled noticeably. "Mr. Reynolds, you're not in a position to object to my methods in my courtroom. If you're concerned about influence, I assure you I'm quite capable of discerning coached responses from genuine ones. I've been interviewing children for 20 years. In the judge's chambers, Lily sat in an oversized chair, her feet dangling well above the floor. Judge Chen had removed her robes and sat across from her, creating a less intimidating environment. "Lily, do you know why you're here today?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Because Frank wants to take me away from my daddy." "Your daddy? You mean Mr. Blackwood?" "Yes, he found me when I was cold and hungry. He takes care of me and keeps me safe." "What about Mr. Reynolds? He says he's your uncle, your mother's brother." Lily's face clouded. "He's not my uncle. He's a bad man. He hurt my mommy. She was scared of him." "How did he hurt your mother?" "He made her take medicine that made her sick, and he said I belonged to him because mommy owed him money." Lily's small hand went to the star necklace at her throat. "He said he would sell me to men who would hurt me." Judge Chen's expression remained neutral, but her eyes reflected concern. "Lily, has Mr. Blackwood told you to say these things?" Lily shook her head emphatically. "No, Daddy just said to tell the truth. And the truth is I want to stay with him forever." When court resumed, Judge Chen's demeanor had subtly shifted. "Having reviewed the evidence and spoken with the child, I find Mr. Reynolds' claim of familial relationship dubious at best. The documentation provided shows clear signs of alteration, and Lily herself does not recognize Mr. Reynolds as her uncle." Frank's face darkened. Dawson whispered urgently in his ear, but he brushed the lawyer off. "Furthermore," Judge Chen continued, "I find Mr. Blackwood has provided a stable, nurturing environment for a child who has experienced significant trauma. While blood relationship is a factor in custody determinations, it is not the only or even the primary consideration. The child's welfare must come first." Frank stood abruptly. "This is bullshit. That's my niece. I have rights." "Mr. Reynolds, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt," Judge Chen warned. "As I was saying, I am extending Mr. Blackwood's temporary guardianship for 60 days, during which time a thorough home study and background investigation will be conducted on both parties. Until then, Lily remains in Mr. Blackwood's care." Relief washed over James, but it was short-lived. As they exited the courtroom, Frank shouldered past him, leaning in close. "This isn't over, Blackwood," he hissed. "Not by a long shot. I want what's mine." James positioned himself between Frank and Lily. "She doesn't belong to anyone, Reynolds, especially not you." Frank's smile was chilling. "We'll see about that. Accidents happen, you know, even to rich men in penthouses." Before James could respond, security intervened, escorting Frank away. But the threat lingered. poisoning what should have been a moment of victory. That evening, the penthouse was quiet. Lily, exhausted from the emotional day, had fallen asleep early, clutching her teddy bear. James sat in his study with Victoria, both nursing glasses of whiskey. "He won't stop," James said quietly. "Reynolds, today was just a setback for him." Victoria swirled the amber liquid in her glass. "No, he won't. Men like that can't stand losing." She studied James over the rim of her glass. "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes to protect her. Even if that means crossing lines you never thought you would." James met her gaze steadily. "I've already crossed those lines, Victoria. The moment I decided to keep her, rather than turn her over to the system, I stepped into territory where the normal rules don't apply." Victoria set her glass down. "You've changed, James." "Have I?" "Yes. After Matthew died, you shut down, buried yourself in work, shut me out." There was no accusation in her voice, merely observation. "But this child has brought something back to life in you." James couldn't deny it. "She reminds me that there's more to life than balance sheets and acquisitions. She reminds you how to love." Victoria's voice was soft. "It's good to see." A comfortable silence fell between them, the bitterness of their divorce temporarily set aside in the face of a greater concern. Victoria finally broke the silence. "I've been thinking. Reynolds will expect you to increase security, hire more guards, turn this place into a fortress. That's exactly what I intend to do. Which is why you should do the opposite. Take Lily and disappear for a while. Go somewhere unexpected, somewhere without the Blackwood name attached." James considered this. "Where would you suggest?" "The lake house in Vermont. It's still in my name since the divorce. Reynolds wouldn't think to look there." The suggestion caught James off guard. The lake house had been their retreat, the place they'd spent summers with Matthew, the last place they'd been truly happy as a family. "Victoria, I couldn't." "Yes, you can," she interrupted. "It's sitting empty. Use it. Keep her safe." She rose, collecting her purse. "I'll have it opened up and stocked. Take her there until the final hearing. Give her some peace away from all this." After Victoria left, James checked on Lily one more time. She slept peacefully, the silver star necklace gleaming against her pajamas. His phone buzzed with a message from Carter. "Reynolds on the move, gathering men at his club, planning something." Decision made, James began preparations. Within an hour, a small bag was packed with essentials. Carter arranged for an unmarked car with a trusted driver. By midnight, James gently lifted the sleeping Lily from her bed, wrapping her in a blanket. "Where are we going?" she murmured sleepily as he carried her to the elevator. "Somewhere safe, sweetheart. Somewhere Frank can't find us." "Will there be stars?" James smiled, remembering the clear Vermont nights, the sky ablaze with constellations invisible from the city. "More stars than you can count." The Vermont lake house stood as Victoria had left it years earlier, a rustic retreat nestled among pine trees overlooking crystalline waters. Inside, it was warm and well-stocked, a fire already burning in the stone hearth. Victoria had been thorough, arranging not only food and necessities, but also toys and books for Lily. As dawn broke over the mountains, James stood on the deck watching Lily explore the snowy yard with wonder. Her delight at the simplest things, animal tracks in the snow, icicles hanging from the eaves, struck him anew with the realization of how much she'd been denied in her short life. His phone buzzed. Carter again. "Reynolds' men hit the penthouse last night. Extensive damage. Security held them off, but they were clearly searching for something or someone." James's jaw tightened. The threat was escalating. "Increase surveillance on Reynolds. I want to know his every move." "Already done, sir. Also, we've completed the background investigation," Judge Chen ordered. "You'll want to see this." Photos appeared on his screen. Frank Reynolds meeting with none other than Thomas Weber, the recused judge. Then more disturbing images. Weber accepting an envelope from Reynolds. Money changing hands. "We've traced Weber's financials," Carter continued. "He's received multiple payments from shell companies linked to Reynolds. This goes beyond their business partnership. Weber was actively on Reynolds' payroll." "Send everything to Eliza," James instructed, "and contact Judge Chen directly. This could be enough to end Reynolds' custody petition immediately." "There's more, sir. We've identified the woman who attempted to take Lily that first day. Rachel Morgan, former social worker, lost her license for falsifying reports, now works directly for Reynolds. The pieces were falling into place. Reynolds had been hunting Lily from the beginning, using every corrupt connection at his disposal. "Sir," Carter's voice grew serious, "there's something else you should know. The trust fund left to Lily by her grandmother? It's bigger than we thought. Almost 50 million after recent market growth. And there's a provision that whoever becomes Lily's legal guardian gains control of the funds until she turns 25. Now James understood the full scope of Reynolds' obsession. Not just trafficking, but a massive financial windfall if he secured guardianship. "Keep digging, Carter. Find me enough to bury Reynolds for good." As days passed in Vermont, James and Lily settled into a peaceful routine far removed from Boston's dangers. Mornings brought pancakes and snowman building. Afternoons were filled with reading by the fire and walks through snow-laden forests. Evenings meant stargazing, with Lily proudly identifying constellations from a book James had found on the shelves. The transformation in Lily was remarkable. Away from the tensions of the custody battle, her nightmares subsided. She laughed more freely, explored more boldly, and with each passing day, the bond between them strengthened. One evening, as they sat before the fire playing a board game, Lily asked the question that had clearly been on her mind. "Daddy, when we go back to Boston, will I have to see the judge again?" James considered his answer carefully. "Maybe, but only so she can make sure you get to stay with me forever." "And what about Frank? Will he try to take me again?" "No," James said with quiet determination. "Frank won't bother us anymore." "How do you know?" "Because I'm making sure of it." Lily studied him with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. "You're fighting him, aren't you? Like the knights in my storybook." James smiled. "Something like that." She nodded, accepting this. "The good knights always win." "Yes," James agreed, though reality was rarely so certain. The good knights always win in the end. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, James received an urgent call from Eliza. "We've got him, James. The evidence against Weber was conclusive. He's been removed from the bench pending investigation. And Reynolds? The FBI has opened an investigation based on the trafficking evidence from Claire's storage unit." Relief coursed through James. "So Lily's safe? Reynolds has no legal claim?" "Not anymore. Judge Chen has reviewed everything and is prepared to grant your petition for permanent guardianship. She just needs you both back for one final hearing." It should have been the end. Reynolds exposed, his threat neutralized through legal channels rather than the darker methods James had contemplated. Yet something nagged at him, an instinct honed through years of corporate warfare. Men like Frank Reynolds didn't simply accept defeat, especially with millions at stake. "We'll return tomorrow," James decided. "Have security sweep the penthouse again, and double the team for the courthouse." That night, James checked the doors and windows twice before retiring. Outside, snow began to fall, a gentle curtain of white descending on the peaceful lake. Tomorrow they would return to Boston, to concrete and politics in the final confrontation with Frank Reynolds. But tonight, in this moment, watching the snow through the window of Lily's room, seeing her peaceful face illuminated by her star-shaped nightlight, James allowed himself to believe in happy endings, to believe that sometimes the good nights really did win. His phone buzzed one last time. "Victoria. Heard the good news. You did it, James. I'm proud of you." James looked at the sleeping child, the daughter of his heart, if not his blood. Yes, they had won. Frank Reynolds' power was broken, his corruption exposed. Judge Chen would formalize what James already knew in his soul, that he and Lily belonged together, father and daughter bound by choice rather than genetics. Yet as he stared into the snowy darkness, James couldn't shake the feeling that their story wasn't quite finished. That somewhere in Boston, Frank Reynolds was making his final, desperate move. "Let him try," James whispered to the night. "He has no idea who he's dealing with." Tomorrow would bring the final battle. But tonight, in this peaceful haven, James allowed himself and Lily one last night of perfect security before the storm. Part 3, morning light painted the Vermont lake gold as James loaded the last bag into the SUV. A dusting of fresh snow covered the ground, pristine and untouched except for Lily's small footprints circling a snowman they'd built the previous day. The peaceful scene belied the tension coiling within him. Today, they would return to Boston for the final hearing. Today, if all went according to plan, Lily would legally become his daughter. Lily emerged from the house clutching her teddy bear, bundled in a new red coat that made her auburn hair seem even brighter. The transformation in her over the past weeks was remarkable. No longer the hollow-eyed, frightened child from the trash bin, she now moved with the confidence of a child who knew she was protected, cherished. The bruises had faded. The nightmares came less frequently. Even her voice had grown stronger, filled with curiosity instead of fear. "Is that everything, Daddy?" she asked, surveying the packed vehicle. "Everything important," James answered, helping her into the booster seat in the back. "We'll be back in Boston by afternoon. And then I'll stay with you forever?" James secured her seatbelt, then met her eyes directly. "That's the plan. What if the judge says no?" The question revealed the anxiety still lingering beneath her newfound security. James squeezed her small hand. "Judge Chen understands what's best for you. And even if something unexpected happens, I will never stop fighting for you. Never." Lily nodded, seemingly satisfied. She reached for the silver star hanging from a chain around her neck, a habit she'd developed whenever seeking reassurance. "Mommy would want me to stay with you." "Yes," James agreed softly. She would. The drive back to Boston passed quietly. Lily alternated between napping and watching the winter landscape blur past her window. James's phone buzzed periodically with updates from Carter about security preparations at the penthouse and courthouse. Everything was in place. Frank Reynolds was under surveillance, his movements tracked. The FBI investigation into his trafficking operation was proceeding swiftly, with arrests of lower-level operatives already underway. Yet uneasiness persisted, a cold weight in James's stomach that no amount of preparation could dispel. Men like Reynolds didn't accept defeat gracefully, especially with millions of dollars at stake. As they approached the outskirts of Boston, James's phone rang. Victoria's name appeared on the screen. "James?" Her voice was tight with urgency. "Where are you?" "About 30 minutes outside the city." "Why?" "Turn around, don't come back yet." James's grip on the steering wheel tightened. "What's happened?" "Reynolds posted bail this morning. The charges were serious, but his connections managed to get him released pending trial." Victoria paused. "And James, he's disappeared. Security lost track of him 2 hours ago." Cold certainty settled in James's chest. He's making his move. Carter thinks so too. He's doubled security at the penthouse and courthouse. But until Reynolds is found, we're vulnerable, James finished. He glanced in the rearview mirror at Lily, who was absorbed in a picture book, blissfully unaware of the danger. "But the hearing is tomorrow. If we don't appear, I've already spoken with Judge Chen. Given the circumstances, she's willing to conduct the hearing remotely. You won't need to be physically present." James considered their options. Returning to Vermont seemed the safest choice, but it would mean retreating, hiding. Years of business battles had taught him that defensive postures rarely won wars. "No," he decided. "We're continuing to Boston." "James, that's madness. Reynolds is desperate and cornered. That makes him more dangerous than ever." "Which is precisely why we need to end this now." James's voice hardened with resolve. "I'm tired of letting that man dictate our lives through fear. Lily deserves better. At least don't go to the penthouse. It's too obvious." "I agree. We'll go to the safe house in Cambridge. Carter set it up last week as a contingency. Not even you know the address." Victoria sighed, recognizing the futility of arguing with James once his mind was set. "Be careful, James. That little girl needs you." The truth of those simple words struck him with unexpected force. Lily needed him, yes. But the revelation that had gradually dawned during their time in Vermont was how profoundly he needed her too. This small, resilient child had awakened parts of himself he'd thought died with Matthew. Capacity for joy, for wonder, for unconditional love. The safe house in Cambridge was a modest brownstone on a quiet street, unremarkable from the outside but equipped with state-of-the-art security systems. Carter met them there, his normally impassive face tight with concern. "The place is secure, sir. Surveillance on all approaches. Panic room in the basement if needed." He lowered his voice as Lily explored the living room. "Any sign of pursuit on your drive-in?" "None. How bad is the situation with Reynolds?" Carter's expression was grave. "Bad. He's liquidated assets, withdrawn substantial cash. His known associates have gone to ground. all the markers of someone preparing to disappear or to take one final, desperate action. James nodded, having expected as much. And the FBI? Moving too cautiously for my taste. They're building a case methodically, but they're not treating Reynolds as an imminent threat. Then we will. James watched as Lily discovered a shelf of children's books, her delight momentarily outshining the danger surrounding them. Double the surveillance team. I want eyes on every person connected to Reynolds. Someone knows where he is. Night fell over Cambridge, bringing with it a fresh snowfall that blanketed the street in hushed white. James tucked Lily into bed in the safe house's second bedroom, reading 3 stories before her eyelids finally grew heavy. Will we go to court tomorrow? She asked sleepily. Not in person. The judge will talk to us through the computer, like a movie call. Lily considered this, her small brow furrowing. Because of Frank? James hesitated, then opted for honesty. Yes, he's still trying to cause trouble, so we're being extra careful. She nodded with a child's simple acceptance of adult complexities. But after tomorrow, he can't take me away anymore? After tomorrow, you'll be Lily Blackwood, legally and forever. Her smile at this was luminous, breaking through the shadows of concern that had gathered around her eyes. I like that name. So do I. James brushed a strand of auburn hair from her forehead. Get some sleep now. Tomorrow's a big day. He left the door ajar, a nightlight casting star-shaped patterns across the ceiling. In the living room, he found Carter reviewing security footage on a laptop. All clear so far, Carter reported. But I've got an uneasy feeling about this, sir. As do I. James poured himself a small measure of whiskey, more for the ritual than the alcohol. It's too quiet. Reynolds has resources we may not be accounting for. Former law enforcement, people with specialized skills. You think he might have found this location? Carter's hesitation was answer enough. I think we need to be prepared for that possibility. James's phone rang, the screen showing an unfamiliar number. He answered cautiously. Blackwood. The voice on the other end was female, hushed and frightened. It's Rachel Morgan. James stiffened. Rachel Morgan, the woman who had attempted to take Lily that first day. Frank Reynolds' operative. What do you want? To warn you. Her words tumbled out in a rush. Frank knows where you are. He has men watching the house right now. He's planning to take the girl tonight. Why are you telling me this? A pause. Because I never signed up for hurting children. Frank's crossed lines even I won't cross. If you're lying, I'm not, she interrupted. Check your perimeter. Northeast corner, black sedan with tinted windows. They've been there for an hour. James signaled to Carter, who immediately accessed the exterior camera feeds. Sure enough, a black sedan was parked exactly where Morgan had indicated, 2 silhouettes barely visible through the windshield. How did he find us? James demanded. He has someone inside your security team. I don't know who, but be careful who you trust. The line went dead. James stared at the phone, ice running through his veins. A mole. Someone close enough to know about the safe house, to betray their location to Reynolds. Sir, Carter's voice was tight. We have movement. 4 men approaching from different directions. Professional formation. Wake Lily. We're moving to the panic room. James rushed to Lily's bedroom, finding her already awake and sitting upright, as if some instinct had alerted her to the danger. Come with me, sweetheart. He kept his voice calm, despite the urgency pulsing through him. We're going to play a game. She allowed him to lift her, clutching her teddy bear as they moved swiftly toward the basement stairs. Carter met them at the door, gun drawn, eyes scanning every shadow. Go, he instructed. I'll hold them off. Not alone, James argued. Come with us. Carter shook his head. Someone needs to buy you time. And sir, he hesitated, if there's truly a mole, it's safest if I'm not locked in that room with you. The implication hung between them. Not accusation, but pragmatic assessment of risk. James nodded once, the gesture containing all the gratitude and respect words couldn't convey. The panic room was a fortified chamber beneath the brownstone, equipped with its own ventilation, communications, and enough supplies to last days if necessary. James secured the steel door behind them, engaging the multiple locks with practiced efficiency. Why are we in here? Lily asked, eyes wide as she took in the stark, utilitarian space. Remember I told you I'd always keep you safe? James knelt to her level. This is part of keeping that promise. Above them, muffled thuds and a single gunshot echoed through the house. Lily flinched, instinctively moving closer to James. Is that Frank? Her voice trembled. Yes, but he can't get to us in here. James guided her to a small cot in the corner. This room is special, like a fortress. The communications panel on the wall lit up, displaying feeds from cameras throughout the house. James watched as four men in tactical gear moved methodically through the rooms. Carter was nowhere to be seen. Had he escaped? Been captured? The uncertainty gnawed at James as he dialed Victoria's number on the secure line. They've found us, he said when she answered. We're in the panic room, but Reynolds' men have breached the house. Victoria's intake of breath was sharp. I'm calling the police. No, not yet. There's a mole in my security team. We don't know how deep the corruption goes or who Reynolds has paid off. We need a different solution. What do you need? James's mind raced, evaluating options, discarding those too risky or too slow. Judge Chen, get her to issue the final guardianship decree immediately, remotely. Once it's official, Reynolds loses any legal claim to Lily, which undercuts his motivation. That won't stop him from trying to take her by force. No, but it gives us leverage with law enforcement. A clear case of attempted kidnapping rather than a custody dispute. Victoria hesitated. I'll try, but James, you need to get out of there. The panic room is secure, but it's also a trap if they're determined enough. James knew she was right. The panic room was designed as a temporary refuge, not a long-term solution. Eventually, Reynolds' men would find a way in, or simply wait them out. I'm working on it, he assured her. Just get that decree. After hanging up, James studied the monitor displaying the intruders' movements through the house. Their search pattern was methodical, professional. These weren't common thugs, but trained operatives, likely former military or law enforcement. They would find the panic room eventually. Lily sat on the cot, unusually quiet, her eyes never leaving James. Are we going to be okay? The question was simple, but it cut to the heart of his responsibility. Not just to protect her physically, but to preserve her sense of security, her newfound trust in the world. Yes, he promised, we're going to be fine. James accessed the panic room's secondary systems, searching for the contingency he'd insisted Carter include during the setup. There, a maintenance tunnel, originally designed for utility access, extending from the panic room to a junction box half a block away. It would be tight, barely large enough for an adult to crawl through, but it offered a way out. Lily, we're going to go on an adventure, he explained, keeping his tone light despite the circumstances. Like explorers escaping a secret cave. Her eyes widened, fear mingling with a child's natural excitement at the prospect of adventure. Through there, she pointed at the narrow access panel he'd opened in the wall. Yes, it's a special tunnel that leads outside. I'll go first, and you'll follow right behind me. Like a game. James gathered the few essentials they might need. A flashlight, Lily's coat, his phone. As he prepared to enter the tunnel, the communications panel chimed with an incoming call. Victoria. It's done, she announced without preamble. Judge Chen issued the decree 15 minutes ago. Lily is legally your daughter, effective immediately. The paperwork has been filed and recorded. Relief flooded through him, momentarily overshadowing the danger. Thank you, Victoria. There's more. The FBI has finally moved on Reynolds. They're executing search warrants on all his properties right now. They know about the attack on the safe house and have teams en route to your location. ETA? 20 minutes, maybe less. James glanced at the monitors. Reynolds' men had found the entrance to the panic room and were setting up what appeared to be breaching equipment. They didn't have 20 minutes. We'll be gone before they arrive, he decided. We're using the tunnel. James, Victoria's voice dropped. Be careful. Please. The concern in her voice touched something in him, a flicker of the connection they'd once shared before grief and blame had severed it. I will. The maintenance tunnel was as cramped as expected, a narrow concrete tube barely 3 feet in diameter. James went first, sweeping the flashlight beam ahead to check for obstacles, then helping Lily navigate the claustrophobic space behind him. She remained remarkably calm, treating the harrowing escape as the adventure he'd framed it to be. Like secret agents, she whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the confined space. Exactly like secret agents. They progressed slowly, the rough concrete scraping against James's shoulders, the air growing increasingly stale. Behind them, muffled through layers of house and earth, came the sound of an explosion. Reynolds' men breaching the panic room door. Almost there, James encouraged, spotting the exit hatch ahead. Just a little farther. The junction box emerged into an alley between rows of brownstones, a nondescript metal cabinet that would attract no attention from passers-by. James pushed the hatch open cautiously, scanning the alley before helping Lily climb out. Snow was falling heavily now, obscuring visibility, but also covering their tracks as they moved away from the safe house. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, her breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. "Somewhere they won't expect." James lifted her into his arms, moving quickly through the deserted streets. Most of Cambridge was asleep, windows dark, sidewalks empty. Their destination was a small chapel a few blocks away, a place James had noticed during their arrival to the safe house. At this hour it would be locked, but such obstacles had never deterred James Blackwood. A credit card between door and frame granted them access to the quiet sanctuary. Inside, the chapel was hushed and dim, illuminated only by the eternal flame near the altar and the ambient glow of streetlights through stained glass windows. It smelled of candle wax and old wood, a comforting, timeless scent. "Are we hiding in church?" Lily whispered, her voice automatically lowering in response to the sacred space. "For now." James settled her in a pew, wrapping her coat more securely around her small frame. "The FBI, the police, are looking for the bad men. They'll be caught soon. And then we can go home?" Home. The penthouse had never felt like home until Lily had filled it with laughter and drawings in the simple, profound miracle of childish joy. "Yes, then we'll go home." James checked his phone. Multiple missed calls from Victoria, from Carter, from numbers he didn't recognize. He dialed Victoria first. "James, thank God. Where are you?" "Safe for the moment. What's happening?" "The FBI raided the safe house, but Reynolds' men were already gone. Carter was found unconscious but alive. He's in the hospital. And James," she paused, "they've identified the mole. It was Davis, your night security lead." James processed this betrayal, mentally reviewing every interaction with the man who had guarded his home, who had been trusted near Lily. "And Reynolds?" "Still at large, but they're closing in. His accounts have been frozen, his associates arrested. He's running out of options." James's instincts sharpened. A cornered predator was most dangerous when escape routes disappeared. He'll make one final attempt. He's invested too much to simply walk away. "Where are you? I'll send trusted security." James hesitated. "Not yet. I need to be certain they're people I can trust." "James, you can't handle this alone." "I'm not alone. I have Lily." He glanced at the child who had curled up on the pew and fallen into exhausted sleep, teddy bear clutched to her chest. "And that's all the motivation I need." After ending the call, James maintained a vigilant watch, monitoring the chapel's entrances while formulating their next move. The FBI would eventually track them down. Victoria would make sure of it. But until then, they were on their own. An hour passed in tense silence. Outside, the snowfall intensified, transforming Cambridge into a muffled white landscape. Lily slept on, her face peaceful despite the danger surrounding them. James allowed himself a moment to simply watch her, this child who had transformed his life through the simple act of needing him. The creak of the chapel door shattering the silence hit James like an electric shock. He moved instantly to shield Lily, positioning himself between her and the entrance. Frank Reynolds stood in the doorway, snow dusting his expensive coat, a gun held casually at his side. He was alone, a surprise that immediately put James on alert. "Touching scene," Reynolds observed, his voice echoing slightly in the empty chapel. "Playing daddy to what's mine." James's body coiled with tension, ready to spring. "She was never yours, Frank. And as of 2 hours ago, she's legally my daughter." Something ugly flickered across Reynolds' face. "Paperwork doesn't mean shit to me, Blackwood. That girl represents $50 million. I've invested too much to walk away empty-handed. Your operation is finished. The FBI has your associates, your evidence, your money. It's over." Reynolds smiled thinly. Not quite. I still have her. He raised the gun, pointing it directly at James. Wake her up. We're leaving. Behind James, Lily stirred, her eyes opening to the nightmare scenario unfolding before her. She made a small, frightened sound that hardened James's resolve into something implacable. You're not taking her, he stated simply. Don't be stupid, Blackwood. I'm the one with the gun. And I'm the one with nothing left to lose. James took a deliberate step forward. You should know something about me, Reynolds. I've spent my life building empires, destroying competitors, accumulating more wealth than most countries. But none of that matters anymore. The only thing that matters is her. Reynolds' expression wavered slightly, the first hint of uncertainty. Back up, or I'll shoot. Maybe, but you won't leave this chapel with her. I promise you that. Another step forward. You're used to people being afraid of you, to getting your way through intimidation. But I stopped being afraid a long time ago when I lost my son. There's a freedom in that, knowing the worst has already happened. Last warning, Blackwood. James continued his slow advance. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to lower that gun and walk away. Because even if you shoot me, the FBI is already closing in. Victoria has alerted them to our location. And the moment you harm me, you lose any pretense of being a legitimate guardian. You become nothing but a kidnapper and murderer. Doubt flickered in Reynolds' eyes, the calculation of a man accustomed to weighing risks and rewards. You're bluffing. Maya, check your phone. See how many of your accounts are suddenly frozen. How many of your men have been arrested in the last hour? Your world is collapsing, Frank. The only question is whether you go down for trafficking and corruption or add murder to the charges. Reynolds' free hand moved to his pocket, withdrawing his phone. His face paled as he scrolled through messages, confirmation of everything James had claimed. It doesn't have to end this way, James continued, his voice steady. You can still walk away. Disappear with whatever resources you have left. For a moment, indecision warred across Reynolds' features. Then his expression hardened, resolve crystallizing into something cold and merciless. If I can't have what's mine, neither can you. He swung the gun toward Lily. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. James lunged forward with a speed born of desperate paternal instinct. His body collided with Reynolds's as the gun discharged, the sound deafening in the chapel's acoustics. They crashed to the floor, James's momentum carrying them into a pew that splintered under their combined weight. James felt a searing pain in his shoulder but ignored it, focusing entirely on subduing Reynolds, on keeping the gun from firing again. They struggled on the chapel floor, Reynolds' face contorted with rage, James's with implacable determination. Daddy! Lily's terrified cry pierced the chaos. The sound of his daughter, calling for him infused James with renewed strength. With a final desperate effort, he wrenched the gun from Reynolds' grasp and struck him hard across the temple with it. Reynolds went limp beneath him. Breathing heavily, James secured the weapon and turned to Lily. Stay where you are, sweetheart. It's okay now. She hadn't moved from the pew, her eyes wide with terror, tears streaming down her face. You're bleeding. James glanced at his shoulder, noting with detached interest the spreading stain on his shirt. The adrenaline had masked the pain, but now it returned in throbbing waves. It's just a scratch, nothing to worry about. The chapel doors burst open again, this time revealing FBI agents in tactical gear, weapons raised. Behind them came Victoria, her elegant composure momentarily shattered by naked concern. James. She rushed to his side as the agent secured Reynolds. My God, you've been shot. It's not serious. James's focus remained on Lily, who still hadn't moved from her spot, shock rendering her immobile. Take care of her first. Victoria approached Lily slowly, speaking in soft, soothing tones. It's all over now, sweetheart. The bad man can't hurt you anymore. Your daddy stopped him. Lily's gaze fixed on James, seeking confirmation. He nodded, attempting a reassuring smile despite the pain. It's true, Frank is going to prison for a very long time. Only then did Lily move, launching herself from the pew into James's waiting arms, heedless of his injury. He winced but held her close, her small body trembling against his chest. You promised, she whispered, her words muffled against his shirt. You promised you'd keep me safe. And I always will, he vowed, the simple truth of it resonating through his entire being. The aftermath unfolded in a blur of paramedics, FBI statements, and hospital lights. James's wound was indeed superficial, the bullet having grazed his shoulder without hitting anything vital. Within hours, he was released with instructions to rest and antibiotics to prevent infection. Frank Reynolds faced multiple federal charges, his empire dismantled, his connections exposed. The corruption had reached further than anyone anticipated, implicating judges, police officers, even a state representative. The case would dominate headlines for months, but James paid it little attention. His focus remained entirely on Lily. The formal adoption ceremony took place 3 weeks later in Judge Chen's chambers, a private affair attended only by Victoria Carter, still recovering from his own injuries, and Mrs. Harris. Lily wore a new blue dress for the occasion, her auburn hair styled with particular care, the silver star necklace gleaming at her throat. "Lily Adams," Judge Chen addressed her with gentle formality. "Today you will legally become Lily Blackwood. Do you understand what that means?" Lily nodded solemnly. "It means James is my daddy forever, not just in our hearts, but on paper too." A smile touched the judge's normally stern features. "That's exactly right. And James, do you understand the responsibilities you are undertaking as Lily's father?" James looked at the child beside him, this miracle who had appeared in a trash can and transformed his existence. "I do. To protect her, guide her, love her unconditionally. To put her welfare above all else, for the rest of my life. Then by the power vested in me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, I hereby declare the adoption complete and binding." Judge Chen signed the final document with a flourish. "Congratulations to you both." Outside the courthouse, snow fell gently, transforming Boston into a wonderland of white. James lifted Lily into his arms, mindful of his healing shoulder, and they paused on the steps to absorb the moment. "What happens now?" Lily asked, snowflakes catching in her eyelashes. "Now we go home," James answered simply. "We build our life together." "Just us?" James glanced at Victoria, who stood a few steps away, watching them with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Their relationship had changed through this ordeal, old wounds beginning to heal in the face of shared purpose. Not reconciliation, perhaps, but something like friendship emerging from the ashes of their marriage. "For now," he said, "but family has a way of growing when you least expect it." That evening, after Lily had been tucked into bed in her room, no longer the guest room, but truly hers, decorated with stars and books and the accumulated treasures of childhood, James stood at the penthouse windows, gazing out at the snow-covered city. Victoria joined him, offering a glass of champagne. "To new beginnings," she toasted softly. James clinked his glass against hers. "Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you." "Yes, you could have," she contradicted, with a small smile. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." And they stood in companionable silence, the bitterness of their divorce seemingly a lifetime ago. "She's changed you," Victoria observed finally. James considered this. "Not changed, reminded me of who I was before we lost Matthew, before I buried myself in work and acquisitions." Victoria's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "He would be proud of you, James, of the father you've become again." The mention of their son no longer brought the stabbing pain it once had. Instead, James felt a bittersweet warmth, the memory of Matthew now connected to Lily in his heart, two children who had shaped him in profound ways. "I think he sent her to me," James admitted quietly. "Not literally, perhaps, but I can't help feeling he had a hand in this somehow." Victoria squeezed his arm gently, understanding without words. Later, after Victoria had departed, James checked on Lily one final time before retiring. She slept peacefully, one arm thrown around her teddy bear, the other hand curled around her star necklace. Her face in repose showed no trace of the trauma she'd endured, only the innocent tranquility of childhood. James adjusted her blanket, brushed a strand of auburn hair from her forehead. In sleep, she looked so much like the child he'd found that night in the park, vulnerable, precious. Yet she was also utterly transformed, secure in the knowledge that she was loved, protected, cherished. As was he. James Blackwood, once defined by wealth and power, by acquisitions and losses, had found his truest purpose in the most unlikely place, A trash can in Boston Common, where a small voice had called out from the darkness, where a child had saved him as surely as he had saved her. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the city in pristine white. Inside, father and daughter slept beneath the same roof, their futures now inexorably entwined. The silver star necklace gleamed in the dim light, a promise kept, a connection preserved, a new constellation in the firmament of their shared life. Spring would come eventually, melting the snow, bringing new growth. But tonight, in this moment of perfect peace, the winter wrapped them in its quiet embrace, a season of endings transformed into beginnings. For James and Lily Blackwood, the future stretched before them like an unwritten story, a blank page awaiting their shared adventures. Not without challenges, perhaps, but faced together. Father and daughter, bound not by blood, but by something infinitely stronger. By choice, by love, by the silver star that had led them to each other.